Where is the line between a mistake and betrayal? One night can destroy everything built over years, even if you were sure you knew the person beside you inside and out. She smiled at you over breakfast, said she was going to visit her parents, and just a few days later ended up in a house where strangers aren't invited. The address hiding those secrets was painfully familiar. And now you're standing at the door, behind which bodies whisper, glances shift, and the air is thick with lies. You think you're ready for anything, until you open that door. What follows is only the truth, harsh, ugly, with no room for, let's forget this ever happened. Because once everything comes to light, there's no way back. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. You think you know someone inside and out, until a single moment tears that illusion apart, exposing a side of them you never saw coming. That's exactly what unfolded between Madeline and me after nearly 10 years of marriage. It started just a few days before New Year's Eve. We were sitting in the living room, the Christmas tree still proudly standing in the corner, its faint pine aroma lingering in the air. I caught that familiar look cross Madeline's face, the one that always preceded news I wouldn't like. "Ryan," she began, nervously biting her lower lip like she always did when uneasy. I was thinking, maybe I'll spend New Year's Eve at my parents' this year. I blinked, thrown off balance. "At your parents' house? Why?" "We've always rung in the new year together." She sighed, fingers absently tugging at the sleeve of her sweater. "I know. But we haven't really seen them much this year, and they keep asking when I'll visit. Plus, you never liked those big family gatherings anyway." I leaned back, searching her face for what she wasn't saying. "Madeline, we had plans. We were supposed to watch the fireworks by the river, remember? You're seriously just going to leave me alone on New Year's?" Her expression hardened. "Ryan, it's not like you even enjoy that stuff. I just thought, maybe it would be nice to spend time with family for once. Is that really so terrible?" From there, the conversation erupted into a full-blown argument, both of us raising our voices, the tension in the room practically crackling. I accused her of being inconsiderate, of springing this on me at the last second. She countered, saying I was rigid, unwilling to ever change. In the end, she grabbed her coat and stormed out, leaving me alone, staring numbly at the glittering lights on the Christmas tree. The next morning, she packed a suitcase and left for her parents' house without looking back. I didn't chase after her. I figured we both needed some space. For the next few days, we barely spoke, just a short text from her saying she'd arrived safely. Then, 2 days before New Year's Eve, I got a message from Jacob, an old family friend who lived in the same town as Madeline's parents. Jacob was the kind of guy who always reached out around the holidays. "Hey Ryan, Merry Christmas and Happy, early, New Year. Are you and Madeline coming down for New Year's Eve? Would love to catch up." I quickly shot back a reply, "Hey Jacob, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you too. Madeline's already there with her folks. I'm staying home this time. Maybe next year." His response came almost immediately. "Really? That's strange. I was just over at her parents' house today. They didn't mention Madeline being there. Actually, they said they were spending New Year's Eve alone. Are you sure she's with them?" My stomach twisted into a knot. "What?" "She told me she was staying with them." I typed back, "What?" She said she was there. Jacob replied almost instantly, "Yeah, man. I saw them myself. They didn't mention anything about Madeline visiting. You sure?" I sat frozen, staring at my phone, feeling a slow, cold dread creep over me. If Madeline wasn't with her parents, where was she? Why would she lie? The more I thought about it, the more unsettled I became. This wasn't like her. None of it added up. That afternoon, needing answers, I made a decision. I hired a private investigator. It felt extreme, But deep down, something told me this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Something was very wrong. The next evening, the investigator called. "Ryan, I found her," he said, giving me an address. The moment he said it, I recognized it. Naomi's place. Naomi, Madeline's best friend from college, the friend I had never fully trusted. Naomi had a history. 2 marriages ended because of infidelity. Every time I expressed concern about Naomi's influence, Madeline brushed it off, claiming everyone had the wrong idea about her. I told the investigator to keep surveillance, to follow them if necessary. He agreed. Around 11 p.m., he called again. "They're on the move. Madeline and Naomi just left the house in Madeline's car. Follow them," I instructed. "Keep me posted." 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. "They've arrived at another house," he reported. "They've gone inside. Other people are showing up too. Couples, singles, all dressed like it's some exclusive party." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Where exactly are you?" I demanded. He gave me the address. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. "Stay there. I'm coming," I said, hanging up. Half an hour later, I pulled up beside the investigator's car. He was still parked discreetly nearby, eyes on the house. I rolled down my window to speak to him. More cars were arriving, people stepping out, couples dressed to the nines, laughing, disappearing inside as if they were part of something secret and special. "All right," I said, keeping my voice steady, even as adrenaline surged through my veins. "I need you to get inside and find out what's going on," I told him firmly. The private investigator, accompanied by a few others, quietly entered the house. As he slipped through the rooms, it became clear almost immediately that this wasn't just an ordinary gathering. An unsettling tension hung in the air, thick enough to choke on. Groups clustered in corners, their laughter exaggerated, and their body language guarded, almost secretive. After a few minutes of quiet observation, he noticed couples murmuring to each other, trading glances filled with hidden meaning and flirtatious smirks. The farther he went, the clearer it became. This wasn't a simple party. It was a swingers event. Without hesitation, he sent me a text. "Ryan, this isn't a normal party. It's a swingers gathering." The words slammed into me. I froze, my entire body locking up. My heart pounded so violently, I thought it might tear through my chest. My hands shook as I stared at the message, struggling to fully comprehend it. This was far worse than anything I had prepared myself for. A few seconds later, another message appeared. "I see her. She's with Naomi and 5 other guys. They're laughing, flirting, getting cozy." The impact of those words was like a punch to my gut. My wife, with Naomi and 5 men? I felt physically ill. As I tried to steady myself, another notification buzzed. "They've just gone into a room together. I'm staying nearby to keep watch." That was all I needed to hear. I couldn't sit and wait any longer. "I'm coming inside." "Open the door for me," I replied immediately. I jumped out of my car and hurried around the side of the house, my blood roaring in my ears. The investigator was waiting and cracked the door open just enough for me to slip through. My heartbeat thundered, each step inside feeling heavier, each creak of the wooden floor sounding unbearably loud. He leaned close and whispered urgently, "Second door on the left." Without saying a word, I stormed down the hallway, fists clenched tight. The door ahead was closed, but I didn't allow myself a moment of hesitation. I pushed it open hard. What I saw made my stomach churn. There was Madeline, completely naked in bed with 3 different men. Naomi was nearby, entangled with 2 others. It was a chaotic, disgusting mess of bodies, something I never in my worst nightmares imagined I'd witness, especially not with my own wife at the center of it. Madeline caught sight of me and froze, her face draining of all color. For a brief second, I saw a flicker of raw emotion in her. Shame, fear, guilt. "This is what you meant by visiting your parents?" My voice cracked, thick with rage and heartbreak. Madeline scrambled for words, her voice trembling. "Ryan? What are you doing here?" I couldn't listen to another word. I turned away, the floor feeling like quicksand under my feet, every step heavier than the last as my heart shattered inside me. Behind me, I heard her frantically pulling on clothes and chasing after me. "Ryan, wait! Please, just hear me out!" I stopped walking but didn't turn to face her. She caught up, grabbed my arm, forcing me to look at her. The panic in her face only deepened the pit in my stomach. "Let go of me, Madeline," I said in a low, shaking voice, trying desperately to keep myself composed. But she refused to let go. "What are you even doing here, Ryan?" she demanded. I stared at her in disbelief, feeling a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice disbelieving. "Maybe you should be asking yourself that question. I saw everything, Madeline. You were cheating." She snapped back immediately, defensive. "I was just messing around with some guys. It's not like it's a huge deal. It was just one night." My anger boiled over, my voice rising despite myself. "Are you even hearing yourself? Not a big deal? How can you possibly think that?" She rushed to defend herself, her words tumbling out in frustration. "Is that what you want me to say? That it's a huge deal? That I'm sorry? Well, I'm not. You stopped caring a long time ago, Ryan." Her words struck harder than any blow. I flinched before I could hide it. "What do you mean? So what?" I shouted, my voice cracking from the strain. This is complete betrayal." Madeline's face hardened, her expression cold. "You weren't really there for me anymore," she said sharply. "You've been distant, cold. I tried to reach out to you, but you shut me out. I needed to feel something again. I needed to feel alive." Her voice quivered with raw emotion, but it didn't soften the blow. I stared at her, barely able to believe the words coming out of her mouth. "So your answer was to cheat?" I asked, my voice raw and broken. "To sleep with strangers behind my back?" "It wasn't about cheating," she snapped, her eyes flashing defensively. "It was about feeling something, anything. You made me feel like I didn't even exist anymore, Ryan." Her words landed harder than any physical hit could have. I shook my head slowly, a crushing sadness weighing me down. "We could have worked through this," I whispered, the last of my strength draining away. "Why didn't you come to me first? You didn't have to take it this far." She folded her arms tightly against her chest, her gaze locking onto mine, cold, sharp, unflinching. "I did come to you, Ryan," she snapped, her voice tight with anger. "You just didn't notice. I needed something more, something we had lost. But you were always consumed by your routines, buried in your career. I was terrified that if I showed you what I needed, you'd just look at me with disgust." I stood rooted to the floor, her words slicing deep, the sting of betrayal eating at my insides. "Madeline, we could have found a way through it," I said quietly. "You didn't have to destroy everything." She glanced away, shame flickering across her face before resentment took its place. "I didn't believe you wanted to," she muttered bitterly. "Every time I needed more, you pushed me aside. I wanted to feel something again. And when you wouldn't give that to me, I found it somewhere else." I struggled to speak. Part of me burned to scream at her. Another part just collapsed inward. How had we let everything crumble like this? "It's over, Madeline," I said at last, forcing the words through the tightness in my chest. "I'm done. I'm filing for divorce." The moment the words were spoken, her expression contorted with fear. She stumbled forward, her voice breaking. "No, Ryan, wait! Please! It meant nothing!" she cried out. "It was just one night. I needed to feel something." I shook my head slowly, the enormity of her betrayal slamming into me again, harder. "You destroyed us, Madeline," I said, each word deliberate, cutting. "There's no way back from this." She grabbed my arm, clutching it desperately. "Don't throw everything away over one mistake," she begged. "We have so many years together. Don't just end it like this." I tore my arm free, my patience gone. "You already made that decision for both of us," I said, voice like steel. You ended it the moment you chose someone else. Straightening my posture, I made sure my next words were unmistakably clear. I want you out of this house. Her jaw dropped, and she stumbled back a step, disbelief flashing across her face. What? What are you saying? I'll gather your things and have them sent to your parents' place, I said, my voice cold and final. We're finished. Don't come back. She stood frozen, her wide eyes brimming with everything she couldn't say, but her devastation was written all over her face. I didn't stay to watch her fall apart. I turned and left, not once looking back. There was nothing left worth salvaging. Within days, I filed the divorce papers. No hesitation, no regrets. Madeline tried everything, text messages, calls, even late-night pleas, but I ignored them all. I had made my choice. There was no forgiveness for what she had done, no way to rebuild what she had broken. I even reached out to her parents, explained the situation plainly, informed them she would receive her belongings soon. I didn't sugarcoat anything. Their silence on the other end said everything. They didn't even try to defend her. When the divorce was finalized, Madeline walked away with nothing. She didn't fight. She didn't ask for anything. Maybe she understood she had already taken more than enough. It was over. And when I stepped into the next chapter of my life, I realized something vital. The choices that wreck you are often the ones that finally set you free. Her betrayal no longer weighed me down. I was free at last. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He always looked at her as if he saw the sun, even on the darkest days. In her eyes reflected their shared youth, first love, long evenings under a blanket, and promises made to the sound of rain. But the years, they are a stubborn force. They bring not only comfort and stability, but shadows too. And sometimes, the shadows grow too dense. Then someone new appears, bold, sparkling, as if her whole life until now had been in black and white. A single phrase, tossed casually over coffee, sets off a chain of events that can't be undone. And when the door closes for the last time, only silence remains. And a choice, a mistake, or the only right decision? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. Camilla used to think her life was just about perfect. Since she was a little girl, her grandmother had likened true love to finding a precious jewel sunk deep in the darkness of a mysterious lake. Camilla was convinced she'd discovered that rare prize early. She was only 13 when Jacob, a boy from her class, offered her half his snack during recess. In that ordinary moment, as they swapped bites of sandwich and shared juice, something quietly shifted. Their connection felt effortless, as though some invisible force had drawn them together from the beginning. They grew up side by side, navigating the ups and downs of adolescence together. High school hallways saw them cheering each other on at events, complaining about tough teachers, and being there for each other through the grief of losing loved ones. Years later, beneath the old tree where they had once crammed for tests, Jacob proposed to Camilla. Tears of happiness streamed down her face. She took his proposal as proof that real, lasting love was possible. Their wedding was a small gathering, filled with people who had witnessed their journey from the start. Their promises to each other were genuine and heartfelt, full of hope for what lay ahead. Early married life felt almost enchanted in its simplicity. Friday nights were for cooking together, Saturdays meant board games, and Sundays were spent watching movies wrapped up in blankets, safe from the outside world. Even their occasional arguments ended with warm embraces and comfortable quiet. Over time, however, new challenges emerged. Jacob's career in tech began to flourish, while Camilla settled into her marketing role. They bought a cozy apartment and furnished it with a mix of Jacob's favorite inspirational sayings and Camilla's collection of vintage treasures. Family get-togethers became a monthly habit, outings with friends grew rarer, and their routines became steady and predictable. That's when Camilla began to sense something had shifted inside her. She couldn't identify exactly when it started, a constant weight in her chest that wasn't quite sadness but was far from happiness. Life was fine. They still had breakfast together, exchanged quick kisses before leaving, but inside, she was yearning for something she couldn't name. Maybe it was the monotony, the repeated weekends, the same old jokes, the predictable schedule that left her feeling unsettled. Camilla slowly realized that their conversations revolved more around bills than dreams. At night, they would lie side by side, each absorbed in their own screens, physically close but mentally drifting apart. One day, waiting for the elevator, Camilla caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored doors. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a rush, a distant look she barely recognized. She appeared worn out, carrying a hidden burden. It was during this period that Bonnie entered her life. Bonnie, a new co-worker, was vibrant and unafraid to speak her mind, her energy palpable in every conversation. Camilla immediately noticed the difference. Bonnie's world seemed wide open, filled with music, spontaneous adventures, and searching, meaningful discussions. But what caught Camilla off guard most was Bonnie's matter-of-fact mention that she was in an open relationship, as if describing a favorite dish. Initially, Camilla was taken aback, even a bit critical, but Bonnie's casual revelation stuck with her. She found herself listening more closely to Bonnie's stories, curious about how someone could live so authentically, bound by no one's expectations but her own. Camilla began comparing her own life to Bonnie's, her friend's easy laughter and openness contrasting sharply with the seriousness and silence at home. Their conversations became more honest and intimate. Camilla absorbed Bonnie's stories of parties, freedom, and total candor. Bonnie's certainty about her lifestyle made Camilla wonder, perhaps for the first time, if lifelong monogamy was truly natural or merely something she'd always accepted without question. One afternoon, sharing coffee at a nearby cafe, Bonnie fixed her with a direct look and said, "You look full of life on the outside, but inside, it's like you're in hibernation. Have you ever just done something for yourself, without worrying if it's right or wrong?" That question haunted Camilla, lingering with her long after the words were spoken. For the first time in years, she asked herself whether she was making her own choices, or simply following the safest, most familiar route. That evening, as she watched Jacob cook, following his usual Wednesday routine, humming an old song, Camilla wondered if their story needed to evolve, or perhaps end altogether. She spent days working out what she would say. She practiced her speech alone in the car, in the shower, even while folding laundry. She considered writing her thoughts down, breaking the news with a joke, or discussing it over a nice dinner, hoping good food might soften the blow. Every approach felt wrong. The thought of Jacob's reaction made her stomach twist with anxiety. She feared destroying something that still felt fragile and irreplaceable. Eventually, on a gray Tuesday after a long and stressful day, Camilla reached her decision. She came home to find Jacob on the couch, his laptop open on his knees, bare feet propped up, TV light flickering across his face. Camilla paused, watching him for a moment before speaking. Her voice was quieter than she'd planned, as if she was crossing a forbidden line. She told him they needed to have a conversation. Jacob immediately closed his computer, his way of showing her he was listening, no matter what was coming. Camilla started carefully, explaining how their routines felt stifling and how she craved a change. Jacob nodded, thinking she meant a vacation or a new activity to do together. But then Camilla asked the question, "Have you ever thought about open relationships?" A dense, awkward silence settled between them, lasting far longer than either found comfortable. Jacob watched her closely, eyes narrowing with doubt as he tried to determine if she truly meant what she'd said. When it dawned on him that she was sincere, he shifted in his seat, crossed his arms, and, in a calm but deliberate voice, asked her to explain her idea more precisely. Camilla chose her words with care, each one feeling like a cautious step across broken glass. She shared the substance of her talks with Bonnie, described the social events, spoke about evolving expectations in relationships, and floated the notion that perhaps love and autonomy could coexist in new, unconventional ways. She voiced her hope that embracing the unknown as a team might reignite the easy intimacy they once enjoyed. Jacob listened without interruption, his face an impassive mask, eyes fixed on her as he processed every word. When he finally replied, his voice was even, yet tinged with pain. He admitted that what hurt wasn't a sense of betrayal, but the realization that her proposal seemed to outweigh everything they had built together. There were no raised voices or slamming doors. Instead, he released a long breath and said he needed some time to process it all. That night, the space between them in bed grew even larger, as if the emotional divide could now be measured in feet rather than inches. Doubt hovered over them, creating a barrier neither could cross. Yet, amid the tension, Camilla felt a subtle sense of relief at having spoken honestly. She clung to the hope that, with time, Jacob would come to understand. In the meantime, he lay awake, quietly replaying the past years, trying to spot the moments where their connection may have started to unravel. In the days that followed, a cold detachment seemed to descend over their home. Their conversations grew terse and strictly functional, stripped of any affection. Meals that once brimmed with lively conversation and laughter were reduced to the occasional clink of utensils and the faint background of the radio. Camilla did her best to keep her composure, silently wishing that with enough time, Jacob might be able to accept what she'd shared. Jacob, for his part, threw himself into work, staying at the office later and later, hoping to outrun the storm of feelings inside him. When Bonnie heard about what had happened, she reacted with optimism. She encouraged Camilla, insisting Jacob needed to expand his perspective, and suggested that stepping outside familiar boundaries had brought new vitality to many relationships. Still plagued by uncertainty, Camilla clung to Bonnie's encouragement as if it were a lifeline. She wanted to believe that love was still at their core and that this new path might rekindle their bond and save what remained. One afternoon, after running some errands, Camilla found Jacob alone in the study, leafing through an old photo album. The images captured moments from vacations, family parties, and everyday joys, like the afternoon they assembled their living room shelves. When he realized she was there, he shut the album gently and met her gaze, not with anger, but with a sorrow so deep it seemed to saturate the room. In that moment, Camilla wondered if she had trespassed over an unspoken boundary, one that should have remained untouched. Yet, the idea of going back to how things were before seemed intolerable. Doubt crept in, slowly overwhelming her thoughts. Despite everything, a part of her still hoped that, by taking this leap together, they might eventually find their way back to each other. And so, caught between the growing distance and her longing to save a marriage on the brink, Camilla pressed on, even though she couldn't quite define what she was moving toward. Bonnie's next recommendation was even more daring, one that might change everything. Although Jacob hadn't accepted the idea right away, Camilla's persistent uncertainty eventually pushed him to contemplate what had once seemed unthinkable. Jacob withdrew almost completely for 3 days, barely speaking except for a brief morning greeting or a distracted, "I'm fine," while staring at his phone. Camilla respected his need for distance, but with each passing hour of silence, her self-assurance slowly drained away. When Jacob finally broke the silence, his words were blunt. He agreed to attend the party, but made it clear it was for her sake alone. His voice gave no hint that he was ready to embrace or even accept what was ahead. On the night of the event, Camilla agonized over what to wear for nearly an hour. The decision felt loaded, about more than just style. It was about the message she wanted to send. She hoped to appear confident, but not desperate, to be memorable, but not outshine others. More than anything, she wished Jacob would look at her the way he once had, with admiration, desire, and that quiet sense of choosing her every day. When she finally stepped out, Jacob was already waiting in the living room, his outfit neat and understated. He looked sharp, but his mind seemed far away. On the surface, Jacob appeared calm, but every movement betrayed his inner turmoil. The car ride was almost silent, interrupted only by the GPS's directions. Camilla tried to lighten the mood with a comment about the radio, but Jacob responded only with a polite, absent smile. They soon arrived at a tasteful, secluded house, its driveway shaded by mature trees and guarded by an automatic gate. As they approached the entrance, Camilla felt a blend of excitement and remorse. Jacob's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. A lively couple welcomed them at the door, their warmth in sharp contrast to the unease Camilla and Jacob carried inside. The interior was elegant, soft lights, subtle music, and the faint scent of something sweet lingering in the air. Other guests mingled easily, reclining on plush furniture or chatting over glasses of wine, completely at home, unlike Camilla and Jacob, who felt conspicuously out of place. Bonnie was there, dressed impeccably in a tailored jumpsuit and striking heels, her lips a bold shade of red. She embraced Camilla warmly, making her feel momentarily at ease. Jacob hovered nearby, and when Bonnie greeted him, her handshake was brief and formal, almost frosty. Trying to lift the mood, Camilla made a gentle joke, but the tension refused to dissolve. As they made their way through the house, Bonnie explained the rules: designated spaces, clearly set boundaries, and strict emphasis on mutual agreement. No one was pressured to do anything. Camilla focused on every word, projecting confidence she didn't quite feel as her heart pounded in her chest. Jacob followed a few steps behind, quietly observing, saying little, his gaze absorbing every detail. As the night wore on, a couple made their way over with a natural elegance that drew attention. They spoke with warmth and an easy charm, drifting from topics like favorite films and hobbies to beloved dishes. The man complimented the way Camilla's necklace glimmered in the lamplight, while his partner remarked on the striking color of Jacob's eyes. Despite the friendliness of their banter, something unspoken lingered beneath their words, a subtle tension that both Camilla and Jacob picked up on immediately. Jacob's arm tensed beneath Camilla's touch, a reaction she sensed at once. For his part, Jacob kept his composure, responding to every query with polite confidence, though inside it felt as though he was navigating a precarious path. Camilla, noticing his growing discomfort, gently led him away from the crowded room. They found a quiet spot by an unused fireplace, away from the noise. She leaned in and asked softly if he wanted to leave, sensing the evening might be too much for him. Jacob hesitated before responding. He confessed that he was trying to manage, but admitted that he felt utterly disconnected from the environment. He described the feeling as being invaded, as though strangers were analyzing every aspect of their relationship. Torn between her curiosity about the evening and the silent request she saw in Jacob's eyes, Camilla squeezed his hand in reassurance. He let her. They attempted to socialize for a bit longer, but Camilla found herself stuck between maintaining pleasant conversation and wanting to protect Jacob's sense of safety. Bonnie passed by now and then, sometimes offering an encouraging look, sometimes glancing at them with subtle disapproval. Camilla found herself questioning why she had come at all. She'd hoped the night might rekindle something in her marriage, a chance to reconnect with Jacob. Instead, it only seemed to make the gulf between them more apparent. Then, just as quietly as he had slipped away earlier, Jacob disappeared. It wasn't until Camilla glanced beside her that she noticed he was gone. She wove through the guests, discreetly asking after him until she finally located him outside, sitting in their car. He sat hunched over the steering wheel, face hidden in his hands, his posture radiating defeat. The sight pierced Camilla with a silent ache. Without saying anything, she got into the passenger seat and simply watched him. After a moment, Jacob started the car and pulled away from the curb. The drive home was heavy with silence. Neither spoke, and the radio stayed off. Headlights from passing cars flashed over the dashboard, casting restless patterns inside. When they reached home, Jacob headed straight for the bedroom, pulled out a bag, and began packing clothes. Camilla, taken aback, struggled to grasp what was happening. With eyes rimmed red, Jacob turned to her and explained that he needed space. He told her he felt like he was losing his identity by pretending to be someone he wasn't. He admitted the hurt ran deeper than he'd realized. Though he insisted he still loved her, he said loving her couldn't require him to erase himself. With that, he zipped the bag, gave her a final weary look, and walked out. Camilla remained rooted in the living room, enveloped by the oppressive quiet that now filled every part of their home. The days that followed crawled by, but Jacob's absence hung over the apartment as if time itself refused to move. His side of the closet stood empty, though his scent lingered faintly on the sheets. The silence that once made Camilla restless now felt absolute. She knew better than to hope for a message, but every notification on her phone made her heart leap, only for letdown to follow when it wasn't from him. Then, one gray Friday, Jacob showed up at the door without warning or explanation. He rang the bell as if nothing had changed. Camilla answered, feeling a mix of longing and apprehension. Jacob looked worn, his jaw shadowed with stubble, but he stood with purpose. She let him in, and they sat facing each other at the kitchen table, the same table that had seen so many moments between them, but now seemed to mark the distance that had grown. Jacob didn't waste time. He told her he'd spent days searching for answers, hoping to find a way back. But eventually, he realized he was broken in ways that couldn't be mended. He said his feelings hadn't disappeared, but their love now brought only pain. Divorce, he said, was the only way to salvage the dignity they still had. Camilla listened in silence. Her mind told her to let go, but her heart still yearned for a second chance. She tried to hide her tears, but they slid down her cheeks quietly, as if in apology. Jacob stood, and for a brief moment their eyes met for the last time. That was all. No dramatic farewell, no parting embrace, no promises of friendship, no empty reassurances. Just the quiet sound of the door closing behind him. The rest of the evening passed in a haze, as if she were floating outside of reality. Later, needing comfort, Camilla called Bonnie. She just needed someone to be there. Bonnie arrived quickly, bringing a bottle of wine and gentle words. The two of them curled up on the sofa, talking into the night. Camilla wept, managed a tentative laugh, and finally admitted, "I made a mistake trying to be someone I'm not. That scene, those parties, they're just not for me, Bonnie. I want us to stay friends, but I can't keep living that life." Bonnie listened and nodded, assuring Camilla she respected her honesty and would never push her into anything she didn't want. Over time, their friendship grew stronger, built on honesty rather than old expectations. Camilla held on to that new sense of truth. Gradually, her days began to feel lighter. She started seeing a therapist, picked up her reading again, and little by little, she rebuilt herself. The months passed, and Bonnie's life moved forward as well. One afternoon, over coffee and shared laughter, Bonnie revealed she was dating someone new. Her boyfriend was a real estate agent, thoughtful, stable, and kind. Soon, they announced their engagement. Camilla was truly happy for her friend, but she couldn't shake a question lingering in her mind. Eventually, she asked, "So, does he want the same things? Are you thinking about an open relationship?" Bonnie answered without hesitation, her voice flat and resolute, "No, never. He's an honorable person. People like him are hard to find these days. There's no chance he'll ever learn about the places I've been." To Camilla, the room seemed to tilt off balance. Each phrase struck her like a slap. Everything Bonnie said clashed with what Camilla thought she knew about her. The support, the sense of freedom, the gentle pushes toward risk. All at once, these gestures felt like performances. Roles that Bonnie played, not truths she lived by. A slow burn of outrage began to build inside Camilla. "So it was easy for you to meddle in my life, wasn't it?" Camilla spat, her words trembling with betrayal. "Simple to send other people into chaos, but you never risked anything yourself. I destroyed my marriage, thinking I was choosing freedom. Now, you're marrying someone who has no idea who you really are." Bonnie tried to justify herself, but Camilla was done listening. Whatever foundation she had left was collapsing beneath her. Sadness quickly gave way to rage. Camilla stood up, grabbed her things, and walked out, never once looking back. Another page in her life turned, this time leaving behind the friendship she'd relied on for comfort. Now, she was left with nothing but herself, no partner, no trusted friend, and the pain of realizing the person she believed in wore a mask so seamless it was almost indistinguishable from the truth. Alone, Camilla finally confronted the hardest lesson of all. When we abandon our true selves to please others, we risk losing not only what we cherish, but the essence of who we are. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He was certain. Betrayal always comes from the outside. But when the blow comes from the one you called a brother, it's not just trust that shatters. It's reality itself. One unexpected evening, one change in routine, and everything that once felt solid begins to crack. Questions without answers, glances you can't ignore, and a silence that hides far too much. When the truth breaks through, it no longer matters who started it, only who finishes it. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. I never would have guessed that Simon would be the one to hurt me the most. Since childhood, we'd been inseparable, two halves of the same reckless whole. Trouble didn't just find us. We practically invited it in. No matter what chaos came our way, we faced it shoulder to shoulder. Coming from homes held together with frayed threads, we clung to each other for stability. Our mothers were sisters, but our bond ran deeper than family ties. It felt elemental. Around the neighborhood, people used to say, "Where Evan goes, Simon's a step behind." The older folks used to watch us like we were a walking warning label. If something had gone wrong, they didn't even need to ask who was involved. One of us meant both. And even when we were grounded or lectured, we turned it into another game, passing notes through fences, cooking up schemes to sneak past bedtime rules. My mom, exasperated in the kitchen, would yell weakly, "Evan, that cousin of yours is at it again, isn't he?" Over at Simon's place, her sister would mirror the sentiment. "Simon, that boy's gonna drag you into real trouble one of these days." We just laughed it off. To us, every scolding was another stripe on our invisible badges of loyalty. The mayhem never really mattered, because we had each other through it all. Simon had this effortless charm, quick with words, always a step ahead of the teachers. I was the quiet one, throwing in the occasional dry one-liner. Our moms tried to rein us in, but the truth was, we never stepped too far over the line. We weren't bad kids. We were just trying to outrun the weight of lives that never quite fit right. Simon's dad drifted in and out like a ghost, never staying long enough to care. My father disappeared before I could even form a memory of him. Our moms carried everything alone, and sometimes they cracked under the weight. Instead of letting it pull us down, Simon and I made each other stronger. As high school came and we began to drift in separate directions, I still believed that no distance could ever shake what we'd built. Then Talia showed up. Sophomore year, new girl from some other district. She walked through the hall like she knew a secret none of us had been let in on. Always smirking, always cool. Simon and I weren't strangers to flirting, but Talia? She wasn't just some girl. She was something else entirely. "You see her by the lockers?" Simon asked, elbowing me as we passed. I glanced over, dark hair, band tee, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, and an eye roll aimed at the teacher. She didn't blend in. She stood out like she wanted to. "Yeah," I said. "She's different." Simon laughed. "Might shoot my shot, unless you're calling first dibs." He meant it like a joke, but we had an unspoken agreement. No girl was worth coming between us. If either of us felt something, we'd talk. One would back off. No drama. But from the beginning, Talia seemed more drawn to me. Simon gave the go-ahead, even though I caught something flicker in his eyes. Regret? Disappointment? Whatever it was, he didn't bring it up. He clapped me on the shoulder. "She's yours, man. I'm not getting in the way." A couple weeks later, heart pounding like hell, I asked her out by her locker. She said yes, without hesitation. That's how it all started. Simon stayed close, always cracking jokes, never letting any bitterness slip through. I thought we'd beaten the cliché love triangle story. Talia and I lasted through high school. We had our ups and downs like any teen couple, some heated fights, long talks, passionate makeups. But I was all in. Talia was smart, fearless, didn't tolerate crap from anyone. Her wild spirit reminded me of the energy Simon and I had thrived on. By senior year, I was certain she was the one, and she seemed just as sure. Simon was still our third wheel, teasing us constantly about how I was going soft. I'd fire back, "You'll never find someone who puts up with your smart mouth." But eventually, he did. Her name was Morgan. That part comes later. By our mid-20s, Talia and I got married. It wasn't a grand affair, just a community hall with gaudy wallpaper and rows of metal chairs, but it was perfect for us. Simon stood next to me as my best man. I looked over during the vows and caught him grinning. At the time, I thought it was pride in his eyes. Now, I'm not so sure. Maybe that smile held something else entirely. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, it felt like every piece had finally clicked into place. My mother dabbed tears from her eyes, and Simon's mom hugged me tightly, her voice trembling. "You made it, sweetheart." Simon gave me a solid pat on the back. "You scored big, man. She's a keeper," he whispered. I laughed, completely caught up in the joy of it all, blind to what might have been unraveling beneath the surface. If only I'd seen what that day really marked. Talia and I moved into a small rental on a leafy, quiet street. She landed a solid job doing project coordination at a marketing firm. I bounced around for a bit before settling into a position at a logistics company. Money was tight in the beginning, but we made it work. Simon, meanwhile, had started traveling more often for work. Eventually, Simon met Morgan, a driven entrepreneur managing her own small venture. A few years after Talia and I tied the knot, they followed suit with a more low-key, yet equally lovely wedding. Our weekends quickly became a blend of shared meals, couples outings, and Sunday football. I'd always thought of Simon as more of a brother than a cousin, and Morgan instantly felt like part of the family. Now and then, I noticed brief, unreadable glances between Simon and Talia, but I chalked them up to the kind of closeness we all shared. As the months rolled by, Simon's life grew increasingly hectic. Morgan's business gained momentum, and Simon jumped on board to help her expand. They appeared to be doing well, financially stable, steadily growing. Meanwhile, Talia and I were hitting snags, occasional arguments, mostly about money, or the emotional weight of our ongoing struggles with infertility. Talia's demeanor began to shift. She seemed more withdrawn, her emotions swinging more often than usual. I did my best to stay patient and supportive. Simon stopped coming over on his own, and I assumed any weirdness between him and Talia had simply fizzled out. Then came a random Wednesday that changed everything. I was supposed to meet up with a few guys from the neighborhood for a quick workout and some basketball, but a sudden storm rolled in and soaked the park. I headed back home, arriving a solid 2 hours earlier than expected. As soon as I walked into the living room, 2 half-full wine glasses caught my eye, their crimson remnants still fresh at the bottom. Talia emerged from the kitchen, her eyes widening just a touch. "Oh, hey," she said, voice catching for a second. "Didn't think you'd be back so soon." "The storm shut things down," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "What's with the wine? Did someone stop by?" She hesitated. "Yeah, actually Morgan swung by for a bit. It was spontaneous. She happened to be in the area," she said, waving it off like it was no big deal. But I knew Morgan was overseas. She'd posted about her trip. We'd all seen it. I looked at Talia in silence as she let out a soft, awkward laugh. "Maybe she was just passing through," she said, her voice weaker now. "I must have forgotten to mention it." Something twisted in my stomach, but I didn't press it, at least not then. I didn't want to accuse her of anything without being sure. That night, I barely slept, turning things over in my head. The next morning, I sent a casual message to Simon. "Hey man, did Morgan come back early? Talia said she stopped by yesterday." His reply came quickly. "Nah, dude, she's still out of the country for a few more weeks." "Why?" My heart sank. Talia hadn't just fudged the truth, she had flat out lied, and the only conclusion that made sense was that someone else had been there. My mind immediately went to Simon, but I couldn't bring myself to jump to conclusions, especially not about the one person I trusted most. Later that evening, I approached Talia in the kitchen. My hands were clammy, my voice shaky. "I know Morgan's still abroad," I said carefully. "So, who was actually here yesterday?" Her eyes filled almost instantly. "Please, just listen," she said, already crying. "It's not what you think." I hadn't even mentioned the idea of cheating. "I lied about Morgan because I didn't want to tell you the real reason. I've been seeing a therapist. Sometimes the sessions happen here. I panicked and made something up." I narrowed my eyes, trying to process it all. "Why would you hide therapy from me?" She looked away, wiping her cheeks. "Because you've said you don't really buy into the whole depression thing. I've heard your comments, how people throw that word around too much. I was scared you'd judge me or not take it seriously." And truthfully, I had made offhand remarks like that, never with bad intent, but enough to make her feel unsupported. Still, I didn't understand why she'd choose Morgan of all people. "Why use her name?" I asked, still unsure whether I believed her. "I panicked," she said again. It was the first thing that came to mind. "Simon knows." I told him. That only made me feel worse. Later that night, I stepped out to the back porch and gave Simon a call. His voice was steady, too steady. "Yeah, man," he said. "She's been having a hard time with the baby stuff. She didn't know how to bring it up, so she came to me. I told her to hang in there and do what felt right, even if that meant keeping her therapy secret. Just be gentle with her, okay?" His words were polished, a little too rehearsed, but I had no hard evidence, just gut feelings and inconsistencies. Talia didn't budge from her story either. Was she really opening up about something private, or was this just a cover? I didn't want to hurt her more if she truly was struggling with depression. So I chose a quiet compromise. I installed discreet motion-triggered cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway. Nothing fancy, just enough to ease my mind. I promised myself that if everything stayed normal, I'd take them down and never look back. Weeks passed, and the footage showed nothing out of the ordinary. No surprise visits, no strange activity. If she was having sessions, they left no trace. The house stayed quiet, eerily so. She seemed calmer than I'd ever seen her, which made me wonder if I'd been too quick to jump to conclusions. Still, I let the cameras roll, just in case. Eventually, my suspicions paid off. One quiet Saturday afternoon, while Talia was out shopping, I sat down to comb through the surveillance footage. That's when I stumbled on it, a recording from the day Simon had dropped by. We were hanging out in the living room, laughing and reminiscing like old friends. At one point, I left to check the garage for a board game we hadn't played in years. As soon as I stepped out of the frame, Simon made his way to the kitchen. There, he and Talia exchanged sharp, hushed words. The sound quality was rough, so I cranked the volume to max. "You need to handle your end," Talia said in a low, urgent tone. "I'm almost out of ways to keep Evan clueless," Simon replied, voice tight. "Relax," she assured him. "Morgan's nearly done transferring the shares. Once that's finalized, I'll file for divorce. Then you can finally leave Evan, and we'll be free to do things our way." Talia crossed her arms, her body language radiating impatience. "This has been dragging on for too long. I'm tired of hiding. You told me not to leave Evan until Morgan was squared away." "I've covered for you every step of the way," she added. "Lied about therapy, lied about everything. Now it's your turn to deliver." The exchange ended with an intense, almost frantic kiss. I watched in shock, my heart pounding. A few moments later, Simon casually returned to the living room, acting like nothing had happened. I walked in from the garage, smiling, completely unaware of the betrayal that had just unfolded. I felt sick. This was Simon, my cousin, the guy who used to sneak into my room so we could stay up all night gaming. And now, he was sleeping with my wife. Worse, they were scheming together. He was waiting for Morgan to sign over her shares so he could move on, while Talia stalled her divorce until everything lined up in their favor. Their plan was simple: get what they wanted from both of us and disappear into the sunset. Together. I sat there frozen, staring at the paused image, caught in a storm of rage and heartbreak. One side of me wanted to drive to Simon's and knock his lights out. The other wanted to confront Talia that second and scream the truth at her. But I didn't do either. If they'd gone to such lengths to keep me in the dark, then I needed to be just as deliberate in how I responded. My first move was to contact Morgan. We weren't close, but she was family technically, and she deserved to know what was happening behind her back. I messaged her. "We need to talk. Just us." She agreed to meet later that week at a quiet cafe. When she arrived, she looked as put together as always, hair neatly tied back, her presence cool and controlled. "What's this about, Evan?" she asked, a note of concern in her voice. Without a word, I pushed my phone across the table and pressed play. The video started, and I braced myself for her reaction. Her eyes followed every movement on screen, her face slowly draining of color as Simon and Talia appeared. When they kissed, her hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. "Unbelievable," she whispered, her voice trembling. I had a feeling something was off, but I never had proof. Simon's been pushing me to sign over part of the company. Said it was all for restructuring. Promised to make it right later. She paused, her jaw tightening. It never sat right with me. But Talia, I never expected this. Evan, I'm so sorry. I shook my head. You didn't do anything wrong. They did this. To both of us. Morgan took a deep breath, visibly trying to steady herself. Then let's make them pay. I'm ending this marriage. We spent the next few hours laying out a plan. I offered to gather more footage if she needed it, but she said the current video was more than enough. It clearly showed cheating. She had top-tier attorneys on standby. Simon wouldn't see it coming. Meanwhile, I kept playing the clueless husband. That gave Morgan time to take the legal steps she needed. Once she was set, I would begin my own divorce process, ensuring Talia walked away with as little as possible. We're going to come at them from both sides, Morgan said, her voice cold with resolve. They won't know what hit them. I nodded. Simon was more than just family. He was like a brother. He needs to feel this. Morgan's tone softened. You're not alone in this. I've got your back. In the following weeks, Morgan served Simon with divorce papers. The look of panic on his face was priceless. He clearly hadn't anticipated the sudden turn. The documents cited general reasons, but she let him know behind the scenes. I know you cheated. She warned him, if he fought back or tried to take her company, she'd go public with the footage. Cornered, Simon folded. He accepted a modest settlement to avoid a scandal. Morgan didn't want a dragged-out legal war. She just wanted him to cut ties and disappear. She even gave him a small payout to accelerate the process, on the condition that he kept his mouth shut. Simon accepted, likely thinking it bought him time to regroup with Talia. From what I could tell, their next phase hinged on the money Simon thought he'd get from Morgan. But the payout was far smaller than they'd expected. During that period, I kept up appearances, clocking in at work, heading home to Talia, pretending life was humming along as usual. She had no clue about the surveillance I'd set up or that I'd made contact with Morgan. Silently, I began funneling a substantial chunk of my savings into my mother's bank account. I only told her, keep this safe. I'll explain everything soon. My mother sensed something was off, but she didn't press me. Talia, on the other hand, seemed bewildered by my sudden lack of interest in her routines. Still, I hid my bitterness beneath a cold, distant exterior. Strangely, she almost seemed relieved that I wasn't digging anymore. It never dawned on her that I already knew everything. Then, just a week before I planned to serve her the divorce papers, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in ages. Preston. We hadn't talked in months, so I answered with mild curiosity. Hey man, long time, I said as I stepped outside onto the porch. There was a long sigh on the line. Evan, listen. He got straight to it. Someone mentioned you and Talia might be splitting. Word travels fast, I replied, keeping my tone flat. Yeah, things are falling apart. He cleared his throat. I've been holding on to something for a long time. I didn't know how to say it before, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My stomach clenched. What is it? I asked, already tense. His voice was unsteady when he spoke again. Do you remember your wedding day? He asked carefully. There's something I saw, something I should have told you. My wife talked me out of it. She said it would only cause damage. I was young, afraid. I didn't know what to do. He paused, then pushed forward. But now that things are falling apart anyway, I feel like I owe you the truth. My heart started to race. Just tell me, Preston. What did you see? He exhaled. A few hours before the ceremony, I went looking for a restroom near the back hallway. I walked in on Simon and Talia. They weren't fully undressed, but it was obvious what was going on. They were being intimate. She still had part of her wedding dress on. I felt ice settle in my veins. I panicked and left, he continued. Later, Simon caught up with me and warned me to stay quiet. Then Talia found me too. She begged me to keep it to myself, said it would blow up your whole life for no reason. I could barely keep my balance. You actually saw them? Right before the ceremony? I asked in a whisper. His voice was trembling. Yeah, I'm sorry. My wife insisted it was a stupid one-time thing. She begged me not to stir up chaos. But I can't keep this buried anymore. You deserve to know. My jaw locked so tightly it ached. After a pause, I said, Thanks for telling me. I wish I'd heard this sooner. But still, I appreciate it. Please don't tell anyone else. He let out a shaky breath. I won't. I'm sorry again. I ended the call and stood alone on the porch, reeling from the betrayal. The image of Talia and Simon, together on our wedding day, it cut deeper than anything I'd uncovered so far. That moment didn't just fill me with rage, it sparked something darker, I no longer wanted a quiet end to this marriage. I wanted retribution, brutal, undeniable revenge. A week later, I made my move. At dawn, I tossed a thick envelope onto the bed, waking Talia with the sound. She blinked, dazed. "What's this?" she mumbled. "Divorce papers," I said calmly. "Sign them." She sat upright, suddenly alert. "What are you talking about?" "I'm finished," I replied, voice cold. "This is done." She looked stunned, probably expecting a long talk, maybe a fight about therapy or the stress of infertility. I gave her nothing. I stood there, watching her flail for something to hold on to in a conversation I'd already closed in my mind. "You can't just spring this on me," she snapped. "What the hell, Evan?" I shrugged. "This is happening. Sign them now and keep it simple, or drag it out in court. Either way, I'm walking away with the win." I saw fear flicker across her face, but also, strangely, a trace of relief, like she'd seen this coming. She scrambled to justify herself. "If this is about me not getting pregnant, that's not fair," she said, trying to regain control. "You're giving up too easily." "It's not that," I cut her off. "I just don't love you anymore." She stared at me, expression hardening. "Fine," she said at last, quieter than before. "Send me the papers. I'll review them." 2 days later, we signed a settlement, one heavily skewed in my favor, thanks to the money I'd quietly diverted in advance. She walked away with a modest payout. I kept the house. She didn't resist much, probably still clinging to the fantasy Simon had spun for her, thinking he was finally making good on all those grand promises. I could practically hear her thoughts. "This is it. Simon and I can finally have the life we dreamed about." I imagined them daydreaming about a fairy tale ending, fueled by whatever payday Simon believed he'd squeeze from Morgan's business. But reality didn't play along. Simon's supposed share of Morgan's company ended up being far less than he'd banked on. She'd completely iced him out. Still, that didn't stop him and Talia from getting married. It was a hushed affair, barely mentioned, almost like they were hiding it. Word slipped through the family like a spilled secret, setting off a quiet storm of speculation. People talked. The timing was suspect. I let them gossip. I had no interest in joining the chorus. Then, Talia dropped another bombshell. She was pregnant. Naturally, that stirred the rumor mill even harder. Some of the whispers even pointed in my direction. One night, she called me, her voice syrupy with satisfaction. "Evan, funny how dates can blur, right? This baby, it could be yours. Don't you want to know for sure?" I gripped the phone tighter, a chill threading through my tone. "Don't play games. If there's even a chance, we'll test once the baby's born. Until then, don't bring this up again." She let out a sharp sigh. "You're seriously unbelievable." I didn't hesitate. "Look who's talking," I shot back, and ended the call without another word. The months dragged on. Eventually, the baby arrived, and with it, the DNA test. Not mine. Didn't stop her from trying to guilt-trip me afterward. Maybe she was hoping I'd crack, offer support anyway. I shut that down immediately. "I don't owe you anything," I told her flatly. "Not a single thing." She lost it, calling me cold, heartless. But after what she and Simon had done, sneaking around behind my back, even on the day I was supposed to be getting married, I had no sympathy left. The betrayal stung worse the more I thought about it. Talia's lies hurt, sure, but Simon? That wound cut deep. He'd been like a brother. You don't just walk away from that. You answer it. I was done with Talia. That chapter was closed. But Simon? He needed to feel what he'd done. He needed a reminder. So I started making quiet moves, reaching out through old networks, people who still owed me favors or knew someone who did. I was looking for someone who could handle a situation discreetly, someone who could deliver a message without it ever tracing back to me. Eventually, I found him. Levi, an old classmate from high school who'd taken a darker road after graduation. We hadn't spoken in years, but I remembered his name carried weight in certain circles. He picked up after 2 rings. "Evan? Man, it's been a while," he said, surprised. "Didn't expect a call from you." I skipped the small talk. "I need something taken care of." He gave a dry laugh. "So we're skipping the catch-up. This about money or payback?" "Payback," I said through clenched teeth. "It's personal, family stuff." He crossed a line. His tone shifted, serious now. "All right. If we're getting involved, understand this. We don't do kills. But if you want him hurt, out of commission for a while, that's doable." "That's what I want," I said. "I want him to feel it. A reminder not to cross me again." "No problem," he replied, his voice low and dangerous. "Hospital trip. You just send me the info. Car, route, timing. We make it look like road rage, easy to set up." A surge of adrenaline kicked in. "What's your price?" He named a figure that made my stomach drop, but I didn't blink. "You've got it." "All right then," he said. "It'll look like a random dust-up. No fingerprints. Helmets, blacked-out visors. No one's eyeing us. In and out, just another angry driver story." I gave a curt thank you and hung up. My heart was racing. A part of me hated what I was becoming, but not enough to back down. This had to be done. Simon needed to pay. He needed to feel it in his bones. Since getting cut out of Morgan's business, Simon had been scrambling, picking up odd driving jobs, hauling loads, picking up parts from industrial sites. It wasn't hard to track his routine. Levi and I picked a crumbling back road near an old, abandoned warehouse, a place Simon passed on most Thursdays. I gave them everything: the car description, a dinged-up gray SUV, the schedule, the layout of the area. Levi brought in 3 guys, bikers, no names, no traces. The plan was simple. They'd speed past him, provoke him, and then escalate it into a convincing brawl. I wouldn't be anywhere near it. Levi promised he'd send me a short video clip afterward as proof. No mistakes, no heat on me. The wheels were in motion. On a blustery Thursday night, Simon drove his SUV down a deserted, time-worn road. The pavement was fractured and faded, weaving its way through decaying factory lots and forgotten warehouses, their surfaces marked with graffiti and rust. The wind shrieked through gaps in chain-link fences, lifting dirt into small, swirling funnels. Ahead, he spotted a quartet of motorcyclists riding in a loose diamond pattern, moving at a suspiciously slow pace. When he tried to overtake them, they abruptly shifted formation, boxing him in. Irritated, Simon slammed his hand against the horn. One of the riders responded with an obscene gesture, motioning for him to back off. True to his temper, Simon snapped. He leaned out his window, half his body outside the vehicle, yelling, "Move it, jackass! I've got places to be!" That outburst lit the fuse. The bikers slammed on their brakes in unison, forcing Simon to veer off and brake hard, gravel and dust swallowing the scene like smoke. He threw open the door and stormed out, fists clenched and posture aggressive. "Are you people trying to get us all killed?" he roared. In response, the riders dismounted. All 4 wore identical matte black helmets with mirrored visors that concealed their faces. One of them pointed directly at Simon. "Got something to say?" The voice was distorted through the helmet. Simon didn't flinch. "Damn right I do," he snapped. "You maniacs need to learn how to share the road." The group slowly advanced, spreading into a loose arc around him. Simon's confidence started to waver. "Wait, what is this?" he muttered, taking a cautious step backward. One rider approached faster. "Time to put you in your place. Big mouths like yours need a reality check." He shoved Simon hard in the chest. Simon stumbled back, slamming into his SUV. "Don't lay a hand on me," Simon yelled. "Real tough guy when you're behind the wheel, huh? Let's see that energy now." Without warning, 2 of the riders charged him. Blows landed, one to his stomach, another to his shoulder. Simon doubled over, air gone from his lungs. The third biker swept his legs out, sending him sprawling onto the rocky ground. "Get up!" growled the first one, menace clear in his tone. Simon pushed himself up, face drawn and pale, and threw a desperate punch. It was easily caught and countered with a brutal strike to his jaw. His head snapped back, and blood sprayed from his lips. "You're all freaking insane," he croaked. "Wrong day, wrong place," came the reply, followed by a savage elbow to his ribs. Simon screamed, trying weakly to shield himself. One biker grabbed his shirt and slammed him hard against the side of the SUV, punching him repeatedly in the torso. He coughed violently, struggling for air, tears running down his cheeks. Then came a new weapon. Someone produced a metal pipe, likely hidden near one of the bikes. The rider raised it high and smashed it into the windshield. The glass shattered with a deafening crack. Simon flinched, but another punch found his jaw before he could react. "Please," Simon begged through ragged breaths, arms raised in surrender. "I give up. You're out of your minds." A swift kick crushed into his knee, and it gave way beneath him. He collapsed, groaning in pain as dust settled around him like falling ash. One of the bikers took out a phone and started recording. The camera focused on Simon's bruised face, the wrecked SUV behind him, shards of glass strewn like confetti. "Say cheese," one of them muttered coldly. Simon tried to speak, but only managed a cough. Another boot slammed into his ribs. He cried out, the sound torn from somewhere deep and broken. "Maybe next time, you'll think twice before mouthing off," snarled the one who'd thrown the first punch. And then, like a switch had been flipped, they mounted their bikes and roared off into the distance. The rumble of their engines faded quickly, leaving only dust swirling over Simon's battered form like the final curtain of a brutal play. A truck driver passed by minutes later, catching sight of the crumpled man. Emergency services arrived soon after. His injuries were catastrophic, ribs cracked, jaw dislocated, internal trauma evident. His knee was shattered and would need reconstruction. Doctors admitted him for long-term observation. Officially, it was logged as a road rage incident. Some believed Simon had provoked it. Others chalked it up to brutal bad luck. But Simon may have suspected otherwise. They wore full helmets. Not once did they say his name. Still, a shadow of doubt lingered. Later that night, I got a video message from Levi. In it, Simon writhed in agony on the roadside, coughing blood as broken glass glittered beside his wrecked SUV. My stomach twisted. I couldn't decide if what I felt was satisfaction or something far darker. Justice had arrived. I couldn't stop thinking about Simon and Talia, the two of them together behind my back, on my wedding day. The memory replayed in cruel loops, fueling my rage. I watched the clip again, his pain tangible. This was the same man who once told me, "We're family. No woman gets between us." But it wasn't just her betrayal. It was his part in all of it. Every lie, every calculated deception. Now, he was tasting the fallout. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you?